I guess I'll tell a little bit of my story. So I grew up in Colorado, went to school in Utah, and a little bit through school, I took 2 years to go serve a mission for my church.
Mm-hmm.
And that took me to Thailand. Fell in love with the culture, fell in love with the people, fell in love with the food. If you've ever had Thai food, you resonate.
So for those of us that haven't been to the East anywhere, we see a lot of things on cooking shows or travel shows. First perception of that might be what? What do people typically think of when you say Thailand?
Elephants.
Okay.
Food, everyone, it's becoming more popular as in the last decade or so. Good food.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about it?
Well, I'm thinking jungle.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't know, this is how much I know about the East or don't know. I know that there are a lot of ancient temples.
Uh-huh.
But I couldn't tell you where they were, what country they were in, or what. And giant Buddha statues, is that a...
Yeah.
Okay.
So the country of Thailand, 96% Buddhist.
Okay.
To be a good Thai, they say you have to be a good Buddhist.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of their culture. It's a piece of their nationalism. You are Buddhist, and so lots of Buddhist temples.
Mm-hmm.
I always think of the Jungle Book. Where the monkeys are, they're in the
Okay.
the ancient temples. But you find a lot of that sort of thing. Beautiful landscape. That you said jungle, yes, mountains, beaches. I mean, it's got it all. So. It's
hot all the time.
And hot. They say they've got 3 seasons. There's the rainy season, there's the hot season, and the hotter season.
Okay. So that's what people might be thinking of when you say that.
Sure.
But then your experience going there, what was that like?
My experience, obviously different. I learned that I was going to go there. And so the first thing I did was got on the internet and Googled Thailand and saw the beautiful beaches and saw the elephants and saw, Muay Thai and exciting things. And of course, I got to experience some of that, but largely spent time on the streets, spent time in people's homes, spent time in the hot sun, walking around. And Bangkok is the major city there. I spent about 18 months there, and it's hot and it smells, and I love it. People. I just love it. But there's a lot of people. Yeah. So learned to read, learned to write the language, learned to speak, and language has an interesting way of helping you understand a culture, when you understand the way they speak and how that affects the way they think. And so anyway, got the chance to be fully immersed in that and just had a blast. Just had a really good time.
So the way that they think and present ideas is different from what we would express in America?
Absolutely. It's funny when you try to translate things, you'll find that certain words or even maybe concepts don't necessarily exist in one place or the other. Just as an example, there's a word in Thai, and there's not a direct translation in English. The best translation you might offer is to feel obligated. The word in Thai is greng chai. In English, it's hard to explain, but it's a part of their culture where if you say, I really like your shirt, I almost feel obligated to give you my shirt. If you say, I'd like to talk to you tomorrow, even if I don't want to talk to you tomorrow, I have to talk to you tomorrow. It's a very courteous, kind.
Gotcha. Obligation, like you said, but it's not the right word.
Yeah, it's not quite the right word. So anyway, that changes the way that concept anyway, seems to be much more prevalent in that culture than it is in our culture. And it's manifested by the fact that we don't even have a word to explain exactly how they use it. Right. Yeah. So really interesting way to learn the culture, to actually dive in and be there and see it.
Cool.
But just had a lot of fun.
Yeah. So what is your connection there now?
Good question. So after returning home, I was going back to school and thought that I wanted to be a doctor.
Is that a family thing?
My grandfather was a doctor. He's got 53 grandchildren. I'm number 53. And not a single grandchild is even in the medical field.
But typically that's the case, right? If a parent or a grandparent is in the military, or if they become an attorney, that's kind of what people follow with, right? That's what they know.
Right. Exactly. So kind of funny that for whatever reason, no one tended to, follow that same path. But my mom, knowing that I was the youngest and knowing that no one else had walked that path yet, she had high hopes for me. So I like to say that I was brainwashed from a little kid to be a doctor. And, I bought in, I was excited about it. And as I was at school, I started taking science classes, and it just was not for me.
Yeah.
It just was not for me. The thought of waking up each morning to think about bonds and chemicals, and it just wasn't for me. And I did a decent amount of shadowing doctors and, spending time at the hospital.
In case it wasn't just the chemistry
yeah,
of it.
Exactly.
It was,
I can power through a class that maybe I'm not interested in, but I didn't love the things that I was doing. I just thought to myself, this isn't me. And I know it's a long,
that's a long road to be on if it's not for you.
And so if it wasn't, so anyway, I decided about halfway through my first semester back from Thailand that I was going to switch over to business.
Okay.
I had some experiences in Thailand, not necessarily in business by any means, but in terms of working with organizations, in terms of tracking results, in terms of finding out what was effective, why it was effective, how do we replicate that or make it more effective or whatever it may be.
Which is what business is all about, figuring out how to make that sale, not necessarily to sell anything, but what makes people want something or what makes people enjoy it or chase it or whatever.
Yeah, and how do we come together as a group to improve that thing, sell more of that product or be more effective in our service, right?
Right.
So I kind of fell in love with that effectiveness and figuring out how to be more effective as an organization and all those sorts of things. Yeah. So as I was wandering through my medical, my pre-medical path, I decided, maybe I'd try business. And the day, and it was kind of funny because I was nervous about grades. Obviously, everyone is when you're going to school. And I talked to a counselor at the university and said, hey, I'm halfway through the semester. I'm not liking chemistry at all. And I'd like to switch to business. There's really not a reason for me to finish my course here because I'm not going to use it, but I need to be a finisher. What do I do? And they said, well, just withdraw from the class. I mean, take a W. And I had never done that before, so I didn't really understand the concept. I said, what does that mean? The way you drop out of the class, but you don't get an F, you just take a W. And I said, well, what is the effect of that on my transcript? Is that going to, raise flags as I'm trying to apply to business schools and that sort of thing? And they said, well, you're going to be applying to business schools, correct? I said, yeah, that's the goal. They said, well, if the people there are looking at your transcript and seeing a W on chemistry, they're just going to say, oh, he's just like us. he dipped out of chemistry because he found out it wasn't for him. So.
And that's if they look.
Right. So I took some comfort in that and anyway, made the switch and just fell in love with it instantly. The classes just resonated with me.
So the concepts, they presented it to you. So I've been trying to think about this. When you go to a class and they present you with a concept, I think sometimes we might be bored in a class because we feel like we get it.
Sure.
Or you like it because, this makes sense to me. I totally get it. I understand the concepts. This test is going to be easy. Is it like that?
No, mine was actually the opposite. Mine was, I don't like being in this class because I don't get it.
Okay.
Right? It didn't click for me. I'm speaking about chemistry, by the way.
Gotcha. Yeah.
When I got into the more business side of things, then yes, I did have that experience.
Awesome.
This tends to be more the way I think. And more so for me, I felt like it was a more hands-on type approach. Sure. For example, I talked about, the bonding of elements and chemicals. I don't even remember the terms. It's been so long at this point, but whatever they study in chemistry. I just kept on thinking to myself, if I'm a surgeon, why in the world do I need to understand these types of things? And I know there are applications for those things if you're going to be in anesthesiology or something. But I just felt like they were making me jump through hoops. And rightfully so. If I'm being operated on,
you need to know.
If I want someone that jumped through every single hoop and knows every single thing, right? But it just didn't feel for me like that was relevant to what I would be doing. And that was hard for me.
Yeah. But the business classes were the opposite of that.
Exactly.
Okay.
And because as I started business classes, I thought to myself, well, just a little background, first of all, I didn't have any background in business at all.
Okay.
If you had asked me in high school, what
do you want to be when you grow up?
What do you want to be when you grow up? Business wasn't even
do you remember what you were thinking in high school?
I wanted to be a doctor.
Still? Okay.
Yeah. But it wasn't even an option. Like I didn't even know that you could go major in business. I didn't know.
Yeah.
It wasn't part of our family vocabulary.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of business talk. It was politics, or it was law, or
other things that family members were doing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so business wasn't really on my radar. So when I decided that I did want to do something in business, I thought, I need to learn what this is about. And so one way that I thought I could do that was by starting a business.
Yeah.
And I had this time that I spent in Thailand, and I knew there were products there that were easy to get, and I wondered if there was some way that I could get those products from there to here and sell them.
Gotcha.
So anyway, as I started doing that while taking classes, everything that I was learning became immediately applicable.
So learning how to source a supply of something, how to get it to a completely different country, all of the steps that are required to make that happen. For some people, business in that regard, though, that sounds ridiculous. Why would I want to jump through those hoops? Why would I want to have to apply for these applications or fill out this paperwork or make sure that whatever's coming is legit, right? Whatever the problems are. But to you, that was like, oh, this is cool. I'm going to read this until midnight.
Yeah.
And I can't wait.
Exactly.
Cool.
And more than just reading about it, I was excited to apply it.
Right. Yeah.
I had a small little business that I had started. And so when we talked about principles of accounting, I was like, oh, that's good. I actually need to go do that in my business. Yeah. Or when we talked about, like you said, sourcing, it was, okay, great. I'm doing that right now. This is a way to improve what I'm currently doing. And so it just became incredibly relevant, and I'm just more of a hands-on learner.
Yeah.
Right. And so it became fun. It became immediately fun.
That is way cool. And then the professors, you're in a class and you ask a question that goes a little bit deeper, and they're sort of like, why are you asking this question?
Yeah.
And maybe you tell them, maybe you don't, but they're like, oh, this guy has some potential.
Yeah.
Not like other students where they're just taking the class to take the class.
Yeah. No, it was good. It was a couple years of free business consulting that I got. So
awesome.
I appreciated that.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's kind of how I got going. It was so I guess I'll explain what we started to do.
Yeah.
One of the things that they had in Thailand that I had purchased while I was there was a custom suit. And it's a pretty fun experience. You can go down to their fabric district, and you walk into big warehouses, and they've got bolts and bolts and bolts of fabrics. And you point at which one you want, and they pull the fabric off the shelf.
And if you're in the mindset with a bunch of other guys talking about suits and ties, it's a pretty big part of your conversation.
Yeah.
As a part of this church experience, going on a mission and wearing something like that. And if you find that you can get something super custom at a decent price, everybody's on that boat, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants that experience.
Exactly. And it was fun to see, how it was made. There was a show when I was a kid called How It's Made.
Yeah.
And, they'd show you how they make radios, or they'd show you how they make whatever. And I always enjoyed watching that type of show. It was fun to see the process, right? So it was fun for me when I was there to experience that process. You pick out your bolt of fabric, and they'd cut it and give it to you, and then you'd walk across town and you'd hand it to a tailor, and he would measure you, and you'd pick out the color buttons you want, and he would say, what kind of pockets do you want? And anyway, he would walk us through that process, and we'd come back a few days later and there was a custom suit.
That's pretty cool.
And you guys can't see me right now, but I'm tall and skinny, so I've always struggled to fit into clothes.
Yeah. What would that cost at that time?
At that time, you could do it for like $100.
Okay, and a suit just regular off the shelf with some minor alterations would be about that same price.
Yeah, maybe even more. I mean, in America, it'd be more.
So to get something custom made at about the same price, maybe less, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, and it was just fun. And so that's why...
practicing language skills too.
Yeah. And you talk about price. And so that was one of the things that led us to think, hey, maybe we can get that cheaper over there than we can here.
Yeah.
Maybe let's bring that in and start selling it. So that's what we started doing. So anyway, that was the business we started in college. It was a custom suit business. We would bring them in from Thailand and sell them here in the United States. And, it's kind of how we got going.
That is awesome. Coming back to the Utah area, where there are a lot of guys who have already experienced this, wanting a suit, and they're thinking, I can get something custom now too. And they might continue that if they're going into law school or whatever. They're definitely going to need something to impress.
Yeah.
And so if you have that contact, right, you've got that college student base. Was that the major customer?
Initially, yes. We were just trying to sell to anyone that we could.
Anybody that wants a suit.
That happened to be our network, right?
Yeah.
Friends and families and fools is what we would say. Anyone who was willing to give us some money.
Yeah.
And we'd, produce a product for them. So yeah, that's how we got going and just had a lot of fun. The initial goal was, like I said, to learn.
Yeah.
It was to get my hands dirty and I get my feet wet. It was to learn the ins and outs of business because, like I said, that wasn't something that was in my vocabulary growing up.
Yeah.
So I just kind of thought, got to throw myself in and we'll see what happens. But of course, I'll do what everybody else does. I'm going to graduate and go get a job and get an MBA and get a bigger job. And, that's the path of life. I was thinking it was a pretty clear-cut path for me that I was going to do.
How long have you been in business now?
Yeah, so that same little business that we started, and when I say we, it was me and two friends that I had met in Thailand, as well as my brother. So there were four of us. We started that little business in college, and I didn't ever go on and get a real job. That turned into the real job. We've been doing that for about 10 years now.
Okay. That's pretty awesome. Any business that can last through those first 3 or 4 years, I mean, those are the hardest, right? You've got to decide whether you're going to do it or not, whether it's going to really make it if you really have the customer base, and you do.
Yeah. Like I said, we started with friends, families, and fools, right? Anyone that was willing to give us money. But we've learned a lot, grown significantly. And yeah, it's expanded just beyond our network of friends. But yeah, it's just been a lot of fun.
That is great. So something that starts off as strictly passion with the side benefit of education has become something that is supporting families, not just here, but over there. What has that been like? What ups and downs have you experienced being in the United States with people that are working and you're depending on them and they're kind of depending on you? What has that experience been like?
Yeah, good question. Right now we employ about 120 people over there in Thailand, and there are families connected to those people, right? Yeah. So there is that's a great deal of responsibility that we feel. And we don't take that lightly. It's especially it's an especially poignant question right now with COVID. Yeah. Right. How do you continue to employ people when not a lot
of people want suits right now?
Yeah, not a lot of people buying custom suits, right? So there's an immense amount of responsibility. Yeah. And of course, the opposite end of that is that there's an immense amount of satisfaction. It's incredibly fulfilling to walk into a place and know that not that you're providing a job for them only, but they're also providing a job for you, right? Yeah. It does go both ways. Yeah. But we have provided a platform where people can come and do what they love to do, and be artists, if you will, in their sphere. And it's fun to know their stories and learn about their kids and meet them and know that you have done something that has helped them in their life. Yeah. Right. Now, could they go get a job elsewhere? Probably. Yeah. It's not that I've provided their only path for success in life, but it's the path that they've chosen. Yeah. And that must mean they like it to some point, right? To some extent.
Yeah, so you'd have to think, regardless of the country that you live in, there is a certain level of, I've got to provide for my family.
Of course.
And that happens everywhere, regardless of the economy that you live in. But they do have skill sets and things that they want to accomplish regardless of where they live. Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, things they want to accomplish. They also have basic needs. We had an employee earlier this month, and her mom needed knee replacement surgery. Mm-hmm. Their healthcare system is different over there. And so we were able to assist and making that possible, right?
Yeah.
And that's incredibly fulfilling.
Yeah.
To know that we of course we sell suits, but I'm not necessarily a fanatic about clothing.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun to see that the fruits of your labors are able to provide people their basic needs and provide people what they want to do. So we just have a ton of fun with that.
Awesome.
Incredibly fulfilling.
So you've had to adjust your production line a little bit over the last few months.
Yeah.
I would just like to know what that was like and how that might possibly change future product line.
Yeah,
So
great
you've been
question.
focused mostly on, 100% on suits?
Yeah, so just a little background on the business. We now own and operate a facility over there.
Okay.
Our main business is supplying custom-made suits to shops throughout the world. So a customer will walk into a little shop. He'll take someone there will take measurements. They'll input it through a computer software that we have developed. Those measurements will go to our factory. The factory will procure the materials. They'll make the suit, send it back. And so that's our main business.
So things have been improved in a lot of ways with the whole production line. It's not just
absolutely
something that you take care of here and send it there and it comes back here. It could be done anywhere. Lots of shops.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly. So that's the main business. Now, how did coronavirus affect that? Right. Well, we manufacture in Thailand, and coronavirus first hit China. Right. And so a lot of our competitors are in China that are manufacturing suits. And so they got hit really hard.
Yeah.
And essentially they had to shut their production down. And what that did to us is it just shot our production up.
Yeah.
So we were actually incredibly busy.
Yeah.
More people were, and we've got some political things at play here, but people are more nervous about what's happening in China.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it comes to just a screeching halt with coronavirus. Yeah. And so we were just drowning in orders. We couldn't fulfill.
That's awesome, but scary.
Yeah. Awesome, but scary. And I remember as we started these things, we were saying, wow, we're so blessed that it's not us.
Yeah.
You know, it was interesting to watch and say, man, how quick things can stop. And we were on the other side of the fence, and we were the lucky ones, right?
Yeah.
But it was a wake up call to say this could happen to us, whether that be a virus, whether it be an earthquake or a fire in the factory or a war, whatever it could be.
Who knows?
Right. And so I remember sitting there looking on and, being super grateful that we had what we had. So it got really busy. And then, as we all know, coronavirus hit the United States.
Stopped a lot of people. Yeah.
And moved on to the world. So our orders stopped pretty much in the middle of a pandemic. People are not as concerned about looking great in their custom suits
at home,
right? When they're just working in their underwear anyway. So yeah, it was scary. We dropped to about 5% revenue.
Wow.
Right. We had lost just about everything.
Yeah.
And like I talked about a minute ago, we've got 120 employees over there, and we've got a number of employees over here, and they've all got mouths to feed. And so it's really scary. We're essentially losing money every single day.
Yeah.
Right. And we had reserves, and we knew that we could weather the storm depending on how long the storm lasted. And so we did everything we could immediately. We wanted to be proactive about it. And so and this was before any talk of government stimulus or loans or anything to help any government aid.
Yeah.
So we immediately dropped everyone's salaries to about 75% of normal. We said, the goal here is
maintain everybody.
Maintain everyone. And we can either pay you 100% now and cut you if we have to later, or drop you now and hopefully we last longer.
Yeah.
Right. So it was 100% survival mode.
Yeah.
And it was scary. It was very scary.
Yeah.
The one thing that gave us comfort is that we knew that the whole world was experiencing this as well, and we weren't alone. And so, we were optimistic in that there had to be something out there that could be done.
Yeah. Eventually it would rebound in some way.
Yeah. So there was hope, of course. But we still had a number of orders that we were fulfilling on from just before it hit. And so we were busy for a little while. And then, it just kind of came to a halt, and we were nervous and thinking about what we could do. And then, the White House kind of announced that they thought the world should be wearing masks, face masks. And we said, well, hey, we've got a lot of people that can sew. And we have got access to fabrics, and we got a lot of sewing machines, and so we can make those.
Do you remember timeline how fast that developed? How people need to wear masks to shipping masks to suppliers?
Yeah, good question. It happened. It was kind of like trying to drink out of a fire hydrant. It happened. Right. It happened fast. Yeah.
Here it comes.
We had made, I had talked to a few people that had said things like, hey, you ought to be doing this. Yeah. And our response initially was like, no, we don't really do that. That's not us. But we had made a few for shops that we had in areas that had been harder. Yeah. All right. We're in Utah, and so Utah didn't get hit quite as hard initially. But we do supply to people in California and New York. And so we had a few requests for, hey, can you make these? And we had made a few. So anyway, the CDC announced that everyone should be wearing face masks. And so we said, okay, it's time to go, So we had threw up a website, invented a brand, and started marketing immediately to it. Yeah. Now, I'd never explained, but my role in the business is to manage the operations, logistics, operations, procurement. Yeah. So all of the, how does it work? Yeah. That's my job, right? Yeah. It's sometimes if you've got a good product, it's easy to sell, right? But
just put it in front of people to buy it.
Yeah. But making the product and delivering it, as it's expected is a different story. It's kind of hard. Anyway, we started selling masks before we had even made any. We had made a few for these shops that are outside.
We had a basic template.
Yeah, we had a basic template, and that was about it, And so, we did not anticipate the demand like we should have, but it was incredible. And we had always supplied to shops, and we could always kind of control our demand, because if we could only make 100 suits, then we would only sell 100 suits. And when we could make 200 suits, then we would go sell 200 suits. Yeah. And it was relatively easy to manage, right?
But now you had a 24-hour line running.
Yes.
Face masks.
Exactly. A 24-hour line running. And not only that, it was rightfully scared and anxious customers.
Yeah.
All right. We had people that, would reach out and say, hey, where's my mask? I'm working in a hospital. I have to wear a mask. And coronavirus was extremely scary in the first little bit, right? Yeah. So it was a lot to manage. And we, along the way, figured out how to do it. But it was drinking from a fire hydrant.
That's kind of a godsend. I mean, you're completely one different area and able to turn around and produce something totally different. I mean, fundamentally, it is a different piece of thing that you wear.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a little more simple than a suit, right?
They're sitting there looking at us like, how do I put this together?
Yeah. So they were able to figure it out pretty quickly. Yeah. But it is different. I mean, what makes it fit comfortably on your face? What types of materials are gonna be more breathable? What's the best way to do this? So there was a lot to figure out. And like I said, we had started selling really before we had that dialed in. And so it was,
which some people would say is the best way to make a product, right?
Yeah.
Put it out there and see if anybody wants it.
Exactly.
And then
exactly. And usually when you do that, you give it to a few people and see how they react, and then you adjust. And we didn't really have the luxury of giving it to a few people and waiting out.
You just had to hope that they liked it.
We just had to make it, hope they liked it. And it actually turned out that they did. I mean, I personally think it's a pretty good product. So we again lucked out. But this was kind of for us personally, and obviously coronavirus is a sad situation, economically and physically, and all the negative effects of it, of course. We just happened to be kind of in the right place at the right time to do something that for us kind of saved us, right? Yeah. Like I said, we were
the way that I'm getting chills right now, though, that's not a coincidence. To be in the manufacturing facility, the ability to produce something, and then to be able to answer a worldwide need, and to be able to distribute that, like, that's pretty epic.
Yeah, it has actually been a ton of fun. And I I keep using that word fun when I'm talking about business, and some of you out there are probably like, this guy, like, there's nothing that sounds fun about that. But for me, it is.
Buzz.
And I think that's the point, right?
Problem solving and developing and providing.
Yeah. And what was so fun about it for us was that it was different. It like you just pointed out, it was an online business, whereas before we had been a wholesaler type business.
Yeah.
It was a large scale type product as opposed to a
kind of a custom,
very personalized one-on-one type product, right? Even the way we shipped things, and we've always shipped things express, and they have to get there fast, and they have to get there 2 days because you've already been waiting for 3 weeks for your custom suit, and you're shipping one thing at a time, and now all of a sudden we're shipping thousands of masks, and they're going to thousands of different houses, and it's a whole different supply chain. It's a whole different logistical setup. So it was just different, and it was a lot of fun. So we kind of had to learn on the go, but that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, and everybody in Thailand working in your warehouse on your manufacturing, were they impacted at all by the coronavirus? I don't know worldwide.
Yeah, good question.
Countries that were not as heavily impacted. Yeah,
they've got different laws over there, and we obviously abide by those laws in that jurisdiction. So when I had told you a minute ago that we announced that we were gonna drop salaries, but they had laws over there about how much you could drop salaries. You can't go beneath a certain point. They've had a history of bad labor laws.
Yeah.
They're really strict about it. They enforce it quite well. Child labor and that sort of thing has been in their history, and so they're very
that's good that they're aware
particular.
of that. Yeah.
And we abide by all those rules. So it was a different set of rules that we had to abide by. And again, another learning experience. How do you deal with a pandemic in a different country?
Yeah.
So as we were trying to figure all that out, luckily the stars kind of aligned for us in terms of timing. Sales had stopped. As soon as coronavirus hit the United States. But luckily we had products that needed to be produced. They were on our production calendar for the next little while, because we had been buoyed up by the shutdown in China. So we were actually busy, and we had about a week and a half of just of nothing to do.
Yeah.
Just totally dead. Totally dead. All of our people are, we're still paying.
A week and a half is rough. Compared, to people sometimes in the United States where there were 2 or 3 months of people trying to figure out how to work from home.
Yeah, and it's different. I talked a little bit about the culture over there. We live in a lucky place. We're lucky to live here, but the world is different here. There's a reason this is a first world country, and the mentality here of saving for a rainy day, that hopefully most people abide by, or at least try to, is not something that's as commonsensical, or if that's a word, sense over there.
So that week and a half for them was really terrible.
Yeah, when you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's really scary, right?
Yeah.
And we had told them we'll take care of you as long as we can, and we'll do everything we can for you. We promise. So anyway, we kind of announced that we were doing this, and they were incredibly receptive.
Yeah.
Really happy, and of course we reminded them of that. Hey, we're incredibly blessed to be able to continue doing this. So you guys have enjoyed this past couple weeks of having a really relaxed environment, but it's time to
back to work.
The engines again. We got to go. And before you complain, remember that the alternative is to be unemployed.
Was it?
Not that we threatened them.
Sure. Was it very dangerous there for them? I know that in the Eastern countries, they generally wear face masks, even for simple illness.
They do. And they were closer initially to China, obviously, just geographically speaking. So they had been aware of it and concerned about it for quite a while. But they... it is part of their culture to wear face masks. There was nothing new about it to them.
So it was just standard operating. This is what we do.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously, it was more scary because their health system isn't, as advanced. And so in the East, they're more concerned about it, I think, especially in Southeast Asia, places like India, especially, just very concerned about what a virus like that could do.
Yeah.
So they were very conscientious of it, very concerned about it. And we we didn't make anyone come to work that felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Luckily, we are about 800 miles away from Bangkok, which is the main populous center of the country. So we're in a small little rural town, and there really hadn't been any cases at that point. So there was concern, of course, but
not real worry.
Yeah, not real worry. Yeah. And of course, we said anyone who's older or feels more susceptible to a disease like this, we're not going to make you come to work. So, but no, they were all really grateful to have something to do.
Yeah.
Have a way to pay the bills.
That's pretty neat that it all worked out in that way.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So 10 years in, 2 different product lines now, 2 different companies. What do you see happening in the next 10 to 15? I mean, you've evolved from sort of a one-on-one experience to multiple events, multiple places being able to give you that one-on-one experience so that you have a bigger clientele base. Is there more... I don't know, product lines changing or more things that you can provide to the customer, different ideas? I'm just curious where your mind is going as you master these things, master the suit line and master.
Yeah. So, and here's where I'll kind of give my plug about what makes that buzz that you talk about, right? What makes us tick. This is why it's so fun for me. And I realize everyone has a different fun.
Yeah.
But for me, it's trying to answer that very question. It's what are we going to do now, right? Yeah. And that's why I have personally loved being in small business, being in small business, being an entrepreneur, if you will. But it's how do we solve problems, right? How do we do things? I personally think, or I heard someone define an entrepreneur as kind of like a pioneer or someone that's doing something that hasn't been done before.
Yeah.
I think that's largely the case. Obviously, if you think of big name entrepreneurs, they are, Henry Ford.
Breaking boundaries and making differences.
They're doing things like that.
Yeah.
I'm no Henry Ford. I'm not inventing a new product. But at the end of the day, I am doing something that I have never done before.
Sure.
And I don't have a boss that's done it before. And I don't have someone, telling me exactly how to do it. So it's a lot of figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
And that's what's fun for me. That's what makes me tick is and there's a decent amount of stress, and you have to be able to handle that stress, and you have to be able to fail and be okay with that failure, and be optimistic that there's success ahead, right? But that's kind of what makes me tick, and that's what's fun for me is thinking about those ideas that say, hey, we've got a problem ahead. How do we anticipate it? How do we adapt to it? How do we overcome it? And then maybe how do we do something that no one ever has done before?
Yeah. So you don't foresee the fall of nice dressing, like the way hats disappeared, the way suits are no longer worn to work very much, and depending on your field.
Yeah, so I do see that. I remember about 10 years ago, I was in college, I was at a business competition, and someone said, what's going to happen when people stop wearing suits? And I kind of laughed, like, what a silly question.
Yeah.
Why would that ever happen?
Yeah.
As a society, we are getting more casual.
Yeah.
And so we do think about that. We think about that a lot. And I think that's been the trend over the last decade.
Yeah.
Less shirt and tie, more just button up and
track suits.
Yeah, right. And with coronavirus, I think that trend has just sped up.
Yeah.
I think people are working from home.
And if they're going to be permitted to or continue to through the next year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not only that, I think people will just start to realize like, hey, it's actually a lot more comfortable to be wearing these clothes than it is to be wearing my suit and tie every day.
Right. And my production, my value, what I offer to you is not dependent on the tie that I'm wearing.
Exactly. So I think there is that's a legitimate fear.
Yeah.
And it's something that we think about every day. What has been comforting through this thought process, or at least some of the ideas that we've been thinking of, there's a number of factors. First of all, like we talked about with China, most of our competitors are over there. Our political landscape makes it less appealing to work over there. And so we think that maybe while the overall wearing of suits will decline, there's still a decent amount of market share that we can pick up as people are more nervous about doing business with China, or they've been through this experience with coronavirus where they've manufactured 100% of their goods over there, and then all of a sudden it stopped. And so people start to think, well, I gotta diversify. Maybe I won't leave China completely, but I do need an option in my back pocket.
Yeah.
And so we think that there's still a lot of growth to be had on the suit side of things because...
Well, there better be, because that first week of school, like that's how you freak your kids out, is by wearing a shirt and tie, meaning business. Like, I can't go to work and wear a polo and jeans. That nobody's going to respect a teacher in the first 2 weeks of school like that.
Sure, and you bring up a good point. There will always be a use for it.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone won't need 10 suits in their closet like they used to.
Yeah.
But you will need a suit in your closet, right? And so there is still a need, and we'll still fill that need. But we need to adapt as well, and if we don't, we'll eventually struggle. So we think we need to be more. We need to get into the casual clothing a little bit more.
So still business, but a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, exactly. And why not make polos? You just mentioned polos. I mean, what we have learned through coronavirus is that we still have the ability to make clothes. So I can finally answer that question that I got asked in that business competition 10 years ago. What happens when people stop wearing suits? Well, I still have a facility. I still have people that can sew. I still have people that can generate new products.
Whatever the next trend is.
Yeah, I mean, there will never be a day where we don't wear clothes.
Yeah.
I hope. Right.
Right.
And so the little summer fling that we've had here with masks has taught us that we can do more.
Yeah.
And we can rely on our people more. I mean, one of the things that's been really interesting is that we can't travel.
Yeah.
And up until this point, every time we've had major problems, we hop on a plane and we go over and we roll up our sleeves. Yeah. We can't do that right now. And so we've had to rely more on our people, and it's taught them that they can do it. And it's taught us that they can do it.
That's a little bit dangerous too, though, because then they'll say, hey, I got this idea.
Right. But yeah, so we know that coronavirus will change the world, at least for the next little while.
Yeah.
And so there are other products that we're playing with right now in terms of, more relaxed clothing, polos. You mentioned hats and other things, and why not sell those types of things? We've got an incredible network over there. We've got a skill set over there that we can leverage. So
awesome.
We're excited. Actually, I'm personally incredibly excited about what else we can do. We've thought about stretchy pants and stretchy shirts and
things that look dressy, but they're totally comfortable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the world's changing to be that way. And I'm a believer myself. If you've ever worn a heavy suit and then you've ever worn a really stretchy, comfortable suit, then there's a difference. So we'll adapt. You have to, or you die. And that adapting and that problem solving and that new idea, that's kind of what makes me buzz, or what makes me tick. That's the buzz I get.
That's awesome. You've been self-deprecating, saying, well, this might sound, and I can't remember what you said exactly, but nerdy, or maybe people don't understand this obsession that I have with this business line. But I bet there are some people out there, if there were some advice that you could give a person who's thinking the exact same thing, well, this isn't cool, or nobody's going to think this is neat, or whatever they're thinking, it's not publishable or sellable or in demand or cool or whatever. What would you tell that person that's thinking, I love this, but about anything?
Yeah. Go do it. Who cares what other people think? I there is so much fear and anxiety of what could happen.
Yeah.
I tell my wife this all the time. She's a worrier, and she likes to jump straight to the worst case scenario.
What if?
Honey, I have a headache. Oh, do you have a brain tumor? No, I just have a headache.
Yeah.
And so she'll jump to sometimes, those types of conclusions. I'm sure you've all met mothers that are like this, right? And so I think that stops you from starting a lot of the time, and you just can't be concerned about what other people think, which is funny because the whole thrust of business is to care what people think and provide them with what they want, right? But you just have to start. I know that that's hard. You don't need to be perfect.
With enough thinking and planning and feeling like it's the right thing to do for you, just take that first step.
Sure. Just take that first step. And I'll talk just briefly about how that process went for me. The first thing you got to do is talk about it, right? I started telling people that I had an idea and I wanted to try this thing. Yeah. And you talk about it with people, and then you see the reaction. and if literally every single person you talk to says that's a really bad idea, then maybe it's a bad idea. But as you vocalize your idea or your concept, then you will start to be encouraged by the reaction if it's a good one, right? So
and depending on feedback, there could be some evolution to that idea.
Sure, absolutely. And inevitably, you're going to find someone else that has that similar interest, right? Not just business. So if it's painting, and for the next week, if you told everyone you came in contact with, like, hey, I think painting would be cool, someone is going to respond and say, hey, I love painting. Let me tell you all about it. And so you got to be a little bit vocal about your thoughts. You got to talk to people about it. They call this validation. You're going to need to get us as humans, we want validation. And so as you talk to people, you will get validated. You might evolve a little bit. You might say, I like art, and someone will say, oh, I like to sketch, and here's why. And you say, oh, maybe that's what I do want to do. Right. And you go give it a try. But you just gotta go try it. You gotta go do it. And you just can't be concerned about what could potentially negatively happen. Right.
So that makes me think, let's go back to this story, and I'm really close to wrapping up here because we've covered so much awesome stuff. But in Thailand, you hear about the opportunity to make a suit. How long did you know about that before you actually went and tried it?
Yeah, good question. When I was in Thailand initially, it was never something I thought about. Like I said, I came back and I spent the next 6 months hitting the medical track again. And it wasn't until I found out that I didn't love that, and until I started taking a few classes, that I then started thinking about, hey, what could I do?
So when you were there in Thailand the first time for those 2 years, you never went through the experience of making a custom suit?
I had one made.
Okay, so you did experience that process.
I experienced that process, but never thought to myself, I'm going to try to sell these when I come back. Never once did I think, hey, I wonder if there's something I can source from this place and sell in America. It just wasn't on my radar at the time.
Do you know, from when you first heard that idea to walking through that experience of building that suit? Going from shop to shop?
Yeah, it was a few months. I guess I don't remember the exact time frame. But
was there some sort of like fear of, I don't know if I want to do this, or I don't know if it's worth it, or this is weird, why would I go through all of these steps to make this happen? Yeah,
and in seeking validation, I joined some clubs that were in college about starting businesses, about entrepreneurship, talked to mentors, talked to people that had been there, done that. I talked to a fellow that I knew had run a few businesses and had some experience in it. I explained my idea, and he cut me off like halfway through my idea, and he just said, go buy a tape measure, come to my house, measure me, and figure out how to make a suit. And what's funny is that I actually never did that, but it clicked for me that it was just
next step.
Okay, so just go do. And so I should call that guy and try to sell him a suit. I never did that, but that was part of that validation process of it, just talking to anybody and everybody about it. That through that process is how I found my current business partner. Right? It was, hey, I kind of want to do something like this. Hey, I kind of want to do something like that too. Well, maybe we should do it together. And I explained earlier that I didn't have any experience in this, and so I knew that I would have to have some buddies alongside,
bouncing ideas off of and encouraging and
So anyway, I guess my advice would be talk about it. Go find validation. Go flush your ideas out. Go find a group of people that likes to do that same thing. And you can't worry too much about what your current circle thinks, because in this exploration process, you're going to find the circle that fits for you, right? You're going to find where you fit in, and you're going to find the people that no matter what makes you tick, there is another person out there that
and
has
people that are interested in whatever you're going to produce or provide.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great advice. I think that is the one thing, is trying it, talking about it, and taking a step, figuring that out.
Yeah. That
is cool. So is there a website that people can go to if they're curious about these custom suits?
Sure. In the Salt Lake area, our retail company here is called HM Cole.
Okay.
We've got a little shop in downtown Salt Lake that we sell through there.
Awesome.
So if you're looking to get yourself a custom suit, you can go there.
Good deal.
So,
okay. Thank you, Daniel, for spending some time with me today. Your story and the lessons that you've learned and the advice that you've shared with people is critical to figuring out what you love. I can obviously see that you have figured out what your good is, and the lives that you're impacting is huge. So your life is good and other lives are good.
hey, well, thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today on Own Your Good. I'd like to give a special thanks to Arches Audio. They are the ones that provided this awesome music. If you need anything for a project, I would go and check them out. They have a great selection of music and other services to help you with your creative projects. I hope that you found this valuable. If you enjoyed this episode and it did something for you, or you think somebody might benefit from it, please share this. It would mean a lot to me to help spread this positivity and this idea that people can change, improve, and ultimately own their good.